Squatters beware, how Florida's latest property rights bill changes everything. Number 2, okay? So imagine a law that is so powerful it could transform the entire landscape of homeownership and investing in Florida. So today we're going to go and peel back the layers of a groundbreaking piece of legislation that was just recently passed that's sparking conversations and debates all across the Sunshine State, not just here in South Florida. So folks, how will this law rewrite property rights? All the rules and the regulations regarding the laws regarding property rights, from the changes it introduces to the direct impact on homeowners and investors and renters, and even controversies it's stirring up. We're deep diving into the heart of Florida's property battleground. So folks, are you ready to see how this law could change your life? With the introduction of House Bill 621, the Property Rights Bill, or more informally known as the Squatters Bill, Florida is intensifying its efforts to combat squatter situations. But what implications does this have for those who own or rent homes in the state, or folks that are considering investing in property in the state of Florida? Well, stick around and let's get to it. Let's kind of paint the background of this scenario. So you own a beautiful vacation home in sunny Florida, okay? You decide to spend a few months up north with your family and your friends. You just want to kind of a little change of scenery, only to return and find there's a bunch of strangers living in your house. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Okay. Unfortunately for many Florida homeowners, this has been an actual reality. Squatters, they move into unoccupied homes, claiming it as their own, often leaving a trail of damage, fear, and frustration. And in Florida, the issue has escalated, bringing communities almost to their knees. Squatters taking over, causing damage, causing legal battles. To get them out could be lengthy and costly, and more often than not, property owners actually end up losing. There's no secret that there's the increase in squatters is everywhere. There are even people on social media telling how to leverage existing legislation in many states to become a squatter. You know, and actually what can become the quickest piece of Florida legislation in recent memory, Florida has passed House Bill 621, or the Property Rights Bill, as it's referred to by many as the anti-squatter bill, okay? And really what it's about property rights. So, and folks, effective July 1st, 2024 of this year, House Bill 621 provides harsh and swift remedies against squatters, and they're thereby safeguarding the rights of property owners across the state. So what does this bill really do? Let's dig into this and find out what's going on. So what it does is it authorizes property owners or their authorized agents, if you're from out of state, to request assistance from the sheriff for immediately removing unauthorized occupants. It authorizes the arrest of the unauthorized occupants from residential dwelling under certain conditions. Conditions are pretty basic, and they're pretty much common sense if you think about it. If the individual or individuals have unlawfully entered and remain in the property, condition number 1, the individual has been directed to leave and they choose not to leave. Okay, so again, hanging out where they're not supposed to be. The individual is not a current or former tenant that's involved in a legal dispute. Folks, now, in some cases, what ends up happening is that there are some legal disputes that are going on that allow tenants, a resident, or people to stay in properties. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about folks that have illegally and without authorization or even knowledge entered in and are residing in your property. And the individual, it provides that the property owner or the agent is not liable for any party or loss or destruction of any of the belongings or any of the property of the people who are unlawfully residing in your property. It also prohibits unlawfully detaining or occupying or trespassing upon a residential dwelling. Now, what this really kind of boils down to is it comes out and it says, look, if you're not supposed to be here, if you're not legally allowed to be here, then you shouldn't be here. And if you're asked to leave, you need to leave. It also provides some very, very strict criminal penalties for anybody who knowingly and willingly presents false documentations. You've probably heard in the news a couple of times where people have held up what they refer to as leases or copies of receipts for payment. If this information that they're providing is fraudulent, okay, or it's false, there are very, very strict penalties for doing that. And even if it's a false deed or anything else that is fraudulent or anything else that is made up, it provides for some very, very, very strict penalties for that. So folks, I'm Kev, and we're living in Fort Lauderdale with Kevin Sues. Okay, we're one of the original YouTube channels down here for the Fort Lauderdale area. Okay, and one of the things that we love doing more than helping everybody else with any kind of real estate related questions, because Suzanne and I are both licensed realtors, okay? It's basically sharing the area around Fort Lauderdale and the area in South Florida, especially areas like Pompano Beach, where folks have been asking us about specific information. We love sharing that information with everybody. We love showing everybody basically, where we live and why we love living here. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, drop us an email, DM us, okay, or click on the link below, and you can go ahead and set up a 40 to 45 minute session where we can talk about Pompano Beach, Fort Lauderdale, South Florida, any kind of real estate related issues or questions you guys may have. Okay, please feel free to drop. And oh, by the way, okay, make sure that you click the bell to get notified every time we drop a new video out, so you can subscribe. Please hit like if you like it. Okay, and if for some reason you didn't like it, please let us know so that we can make improvements. Folks are kind of asking, how does this work? Okay, and in many cases, legislation is all written with all kind of legalese and all kind of words, but essentially, this actually makes it pretty easy. It's actually pretty straightforward. So, I mean, in the state of Florida, upon this going into effect on July 1st, 2024, it'll be quick and simple to reclaim your home from squatters, avoiding costly delays, litigation, and potentially missed rents. Okay, and it's very, very straightforward. Either the owner or the authorized agent must submit a completed and verified complaint to the sheriff in the county where the property is located. Pretty common sense, right? The complaint outlines the situation and requests assistance immediately removing the unauthorized occupants or the squatters from the dwelling. Okay, it's got to be residential, folks. Okay, we don't really know if it impacts any type of commercial dwellings or commercial buildings yet, but right now it's focused on the residential piece. Upon receiving the complaint, the sheriff's office takes action. They verify the ownership of the property, verifying that you are indeed the owner. Okay, they identify the occupants that are in there to the best of their ability. Okay, and they give the occupants notice to vacate. Okay, now this is where it kind of gets a little bit interesting. In the past, when the sheriff has shown up and they give the unauthorized occupants, the notice to vacate, the occupants usually just slam a door in their face and go back on their merry way. Okay. Now, what can happen now in the state of Florida is the sheriff can actually arrest the unauthorized occupant if there's legal cause. The property owner can also request that the sheriff stand by while they take possession of the property themselves, including changing locks and removing personal property that belong to the unauthorized occupants. Again, the squatters. Now, the sheriff is entitled to a specified fee for service, similar to when they serve a writ of possession or when anybody gets served doing anything from the sheriff's department. So there may be a little bit of a cost, but the cost for the fee to the sheriff's department is far, far, far less than it would be to go through the costly and laborious and time-consuming legislation and regulations and going through all the legalities in court and everything else. Now, one of the big things for the sheriff's department is that the sheriff's not liable to any party for loss or destruction or damage. So if somehow, some way, either your property gets damaged by somebody pushing on the way out, or if the unauthorized occupants, squatter, okay, if their property gets damaged, the sheriff's department is not responsible for that, okay? Nor is the property owner. If somebody's occupying your property illegally, you're not responsible for any kind of damage or loss or anything unless the property was wrongfully removed. Now, in some cases, there may be a mistake, there may be something is going on, but this relates specifically to folks that are from an unauthorized perspective. Okay, they're occupying your property. They truly meet the definition of squatters. So, folks, in addition to kind of expediting the process and whatnot, this House Bill 621, the anti-squatter bill, calls for some pretty harsh penalties for those engaged in squatting and for those that are encouraging others to engage in squatting. I mean, it makes it a first-degree misdemeanor for making false statements in writing, of course, to obtain property, or knowingly and willfully presenting falsified document conveying property rights. Basically, if somebody throws up a fraudulent lease, somebody throws up a fraudulent deed a deed or anything like that, if it's fraudulent, okay, it's a first-degree misdemeanor. It's a second-degree felony for anybody who unlawfully occupies or trespasses in a residential dwelling who intentionally causes $1,000 or more in damages. Now, folks, with the cost of things today, $1,000 in damages is not very, very difficult to get to. So this makes it a second-degree felony. And it's a first-degree felony for knowingly advertising the sale or rent of residential property without legal ownership. So all these folks that have been putting up things to rent on Craigslist and on social media that it isn't really theirs, and showing up and collecting a deposit and whatnot, it makes it a first-degree felony. And folks, I'm telling you, it hasn't even gone into effect yet, okay? But the effects of House Bill 621 are already being felt across the state. Homeowners and investors are beginning to breathe a whole lot easier, and neighborhoods are trying to go back and reclaim a little bit of the tranquility. So, folks, it's basically the state of Florida is saying, we're sending a clear message. Florida stands with its property owners. So what's the bottom line here? So kind of what does it mean? The enactment of House Bill 621, the anti-squatter bill, if you will, marks a significant victory for property owners grappling with the challenges posed by residential squatting. Okay, and all you have to do is look on the news. You see it. We've seen it in Jacksonville. We've seen it in areas around Miami. We've seen it here in the Fort Lauderdale area. We've seen it in New York. We've seen it everywhere. But this streamlines the process for removing squatters and imposing very, very hefty fines and hefty penalties for unlawful occupation. Florida is really, really pushing hard to protect the property rights and ensure a safer, more secure environment for homeowners and for investors. So, folks, as we've seen, the battle against squatting is not just about the law, it's about restoring peace and safety to our communities. So, folks, what are your thoughts on House Bill 621? Have you or anybody you've known faced a situation like this? Please feel free to share your stories or share your thoughts in the box below. If you found this deep dive enlightening, give us a thumbs up. If you found it entertaining, definitely give us a thumbs up and educational, okay? And don't forget to subscribe to get more content from our videos and kind of get to the heart of what matters here. Okay, I'm Kevin, and this is Living in Fort Lauderdale with Kevin Sues. Thanks for watching, and together we're gonna make a difference one story at a time.